everyone in this world is seeking stability. We want to feel stable because it makes us feel safe. It provides the opportunity for us to finally relax. It's like everything just stays the same. We got it figured out, then we know how to behave, we know how to move, we know how to operate the world if it's stable. Very comfortable to be stable. But as we know from the first noble truth, life is transitory and impermanent. It's not stable. It's inherently unstable. And it's very fascinating because in our lifetime, we are seeing so many rapid changes. If we just look at even where we were 100 years ago, 150 years ago, as a human race, everything is vastly different. The speed at which we can communicate, even in the past 20 years, has exponentially increased. The speed of everything, all of our interactions, has just gone off the chart. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, where if you wanted to contact somebody on the other side of the world, it could take months. And then you wouldn't even know if they actually got your letter. And that would be if you even knew how to write and they knew how to read. Otherwise, you have to rely on an actual messenger, a person, to carry your vital information. And now we have the internet. We have cell phones. We have airplanes that we hear in the background that can actually take us, if we want to have that in-person conversation, can take us to the other side of the country in just a couple hours. And if you have enough money, you can get a private jet, take you to the other side of the world really fast. So the world around us is very unstable because it's changing. We oftentimes celebrate these changes. And progress is good. You know, I for one really enjoy indoor plumbing. It's a wonderful invention that only came about because of progress. I really love driving. So having that ability to get in a car and go hundreds of miles is wonderful. But it's challenging because there's that part of us that wants stability, that wants everything to stay the same. So it's going to get a little loud because of the trash truck. That's just another example. You know, we want our environment to be maintained in the way that we want it. You know, we're here in this temple and we want it to be really quiet and peaceful. And yet, every Saturday, the truck shows up to empty the dumpster in the alleyway. And it makes lots of noise. So we have to pause for the loudest noise. But in that moment, we have a choice. We can be upset over that instability, that our peaceful temple has been invaded by these loud noises, or we can feel immense gratitude that they've taken the stinky trash away. Because the alternative is the trash just builds up in the alleyway until either the rain comes, which in San Diego only happens, a couple times a year, and washes it into the ocean, which then leads to pollution of our ocean, or somebody gets fed up enough where they actually physically shovel it into a wagon and take it away. So in these moments of change, these moments of instability, we have an option to utilize our practice. We have the option to use that change to find stability. So if we head back to the Four Noble Truths for a moment, the first one is that life is transitory and unstable. And I think if you investigate on your own, it's not something that you have to believe. It's something you can experience and witness with your own eyes and your own experience. Even just in a moment, now the truck is gone, it's much quieter. So change happens all the time. The second truth is attachment to the transitory causes suffering. So when we become attached to something that does not last, we have an idea that gets fixed in our mind. We want our temple to be quiet and peaceful and pretty, and we work really hard to create this atmosphere where we can come and sit together and meditate and enjoy this peacefulness. And that is a worthy thing to do. But to cling to it, to become attached to that idea or any other idea, is a guaranteed suffering. So, third noble truth, there's a way out. There is a way out. And the fourth noble truth is the Buddha Dharma, the path, is the way out. So in our genetic chasing of stability, we have to wrestle with that in our mind and discover that, okay, this life is not stable. These bodies are not stable. And you say, but you said in the third noble truth, there's a way out of this transitory thing. There's a way out of the transitory. And yes, there is, but not in the way that you think. There's this danger that happens where we suddenly cling to eternalism. We think, well, if I get the conditions just right, then this body's going to last forever. If I get the conditions just right, then this temple I built is going to last forever. If I get the conditions just right, my job is always going to be exactly how I want it to be. Or whatever it is that you are clinging to. But all of that is transitory. See number one. Everything is transitory. Everything arises and falls away. So that brings us down to truth number 4. The path, the Buddha Dharma, is the way out. So we have this wonderful mind that also is transitory. There's all these different levels of consciousness happening, and all these sensations arise. Our mind perceives these sensations. We have memories, and we have this unconscious that tries to make sense of it all. So all of this is happening, but all of that is also transitory. But there's this other process. There's this voidness, this emptiness, this origination point. The Dharma Dhatu, before the split into samsara and nirvana. And that is Buddha Dharma. So what we can do is, instead of reaching outward to all the stuff around us and trying to control our environment, instead of trying to control our bodies and make it do things that maybe it's not designed to do, we can instead investigate, what is this Buddha Dharma? What is the truth? And then we return to the First Noble Truth. Well, everything is transitory. Nothing stays the same. But there is this ability to explore and begin to understand how this transitory world creates karma and effects, how the actions turn into results. And in doing so, we start to see the games of creation. And we start to recognize that our little world and our little bodies and our little minds are one of these games of creation. We can get caught up in those games, and again, we find ourselves in tremendous suffering. Or we can keep digging. We can keep looking behind the curtain. And it's this exploration, this curiosity, this quest for truth that provides a level of stability in our life and in our minds and in our world. Because as we're getting tossed around and we get caught up in the game, if we return to our practice, into simply experiencing all that is, without trying to change it, without trying to manipulate it, there's a basis of being that is very stable. It's beyond our control, it's beyond manipulation, it's beyond understanding. Yet it's there, and we experience it every day, all the time. But we're so busy, caught up in the game, our awareness and attention gets drawn to the transitory. And we start believing that we are that. I say, well, no, I'm this body, and it's gonna die. It's like, no. Or, oh, my beautiful temple, it's got all loud. No. Or my house, it's not how I want it to be. Or I finally got it how I want it to be, and then something happens. So it's a choice. It's a choice that we don't make just once. It's a choice we make over and over and over again. That we are going to be aware of awareness itself as it's experiencing everything all at once. And that's big for the mind. The mind is limited. It needs a reference point in order to exist. So as we start to take away these reference points one by one, and we say, nope, I'm not that. Nope, I'm not that. Nope, I'm not that. Naturally, the mind's going to feel very unstable. It's going to feel that confusion. So in those moments of instability and confusion, we return to the stability of the path. We return to our basic practice of sitting in meditation. We return to our basic practice of mindfulness, of paying attention to what the mind is doing, what games it's playing, because then we learn the patterns. And we discover that, oh, I got really caught in this little whirlpool over here. And it took a lot of energy, it took a lot of focus, and it took me into some very dark places. And then I finally realized that, oh, they're not real, they're transitory. So what is real? And see, now we're back on the path. Now we're investigating and seeking until we can finally allow ourselves to just experience truth as it is, without any mental modifications, without adding anything extra, without trying to take anything away, without saying, well, no, enlightenment's supposed to be all, bright and happy, bouncy all the time. And sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not. But there is enlightenment. There is truth. And there is joy. So in this crazy world of endless change, of so much turmoil, we're going through a little bit of a rough patch in the world right now. I think most people would agree. There's a lot of angst happening, and then it's that because of the speed of our communication, it's building up really fast, even though it's not always in proportion. There's a lot of confusion when you hear partial truths. You think you know, but really you don't know what you don't know. So we bind ourselves up into knots. And again, all of those knots come from clinging, from that attachment to the transitory. So if we return to our path, turn to meditation, to mindfulness, to contemplation, we return to the Buddha Dharma, then that allows us to experience this wonderful stability. It's something firm that supports us. And it's challenging because the mind wants to label it and put it in a box and say, okay, this is Buddha Dharma, this is what I'm going to cling to. And it doesn't work that way. There's people that have tried. Buddha Shakyamuni taught 2,500 years ago, and people have written books and people have created different religions around his teachings, and they're wonderful and they're beautiful, and people have found other enlightened teachers and created religions and boxes around those teachings, and they can be helpful and beautiful, but none of that is really it. Buddha Dharma is you. What you really are, not this transitory you, not this individual person that you think you are. There's just this wonderful experience that's happening. And if we tune our mind in such a way, we recognize that we already are that, and we've always been that. So that is our practice. That is our stability. So when you feel the pressures of the world and everything's going nuts, return to practice. Very, very simple. Might not be what everybody wants to hear. It's like, because it's not go meditate and everything will be okay. Not at all. We still have bodies and we're still interacting in this relative world from different reference points, and so the game continues, and we have no choice but to participate in the game in one way or another. So we do that from the with the best of our ability. But if we can play from a point of clarity, from a point of seeking stability in our path, instead of in the moving and ever-changing world, the play takes on a very different nature. It's the difference between knowing it's a game and it's play versus not, versus thinking that it's just a trapped drudgery that we're stuck in doing. We start to see and experience the lightness of being, and we can bring that in to whatever it is that we do, and that's a very noble thing to do. So play with that. Look at how your mind and how you get caught in these ever-changing currents of the world, and what strategies, what skillful means you can use to find that stability in the path, instead of just flailing about in the whirlpool going with everybody else. If you can find that stability in the path, then you recognize the beauty of this moment, and it provides everyone else with the ability to provide that, to discover that calm beauty, that peace that's always present. I'll give you an example of an old friend I had who was in New York when the towers came down. She was on Wall Street, and she told the story of just all the dust and the confusion and the utter terror. And she found her way into a shop, like a coffee shop or something, with a whole bunch of people, and they were just all freaking out, which is natural when the whole world is falling down around you. And her practice kicked in, and she just became calm. And in that moment, she knew everything was okay, because it was in that moment. And her presence radiated out into that coffee shop, and the people around her became calm. So there was still all this terrible things happening, all this horror that was still to unfold, but in that moment there was peace, because that person found stability in the Buddha, in the Buddha Dharma. So that is the power of this practice, even in those intense circumstances. And it happens, privately in our lives, and it happens publicly in our lives. And it comes back to those little choices that we make throughout the day. This isn't the path that we do once. It's like, okay, I did my meditation this morning, now I'm done. We do our meditation in the morning, and then we continue to practice. And we continue to pull our mind back to the path over and over again. So when something big happens that does rock your world, you naturally gravitate back to the path. So I encourage everyone to practice, to seek truth, and to find that stability in truth. So let's meditate.